Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I will join the chorus of speakers today. I'm from Toronto, and even though I'm from Toronto, I will say it's cold here in Chicago, but not cold enough to wear socks. Let me tell you a little bit about Achievers right off the top. Achievers is an employee recognition and rewards software company, and our customers leverage high-frequency recognition within the flow of work to connect their employees to their manager, to their peers, to the mission of the organization, and also to the behaviors that drive performance. And as Nick shared, I run our Workforce Institute, which is a team of workforce researchers and data scientists that work to underpin the product we develop and also the counsel we share with our customers through global primary research studies. Now, a quick show of hands. Today is January 15th. How many of you made New Year's resolutions to start this year? All right. Now keep your hands up if you're still on track with those resolutions. Oh, all right. What I'm here to share today are 4 things that I think as leaders we need to resolve to bake into the employee experience. As Nick said, we can't hire our way out of our people programs, or problems rather, the way that we used to. And so the 20 minutes that we have today, I'm going to talk about 4 key conditions that I think underpin the work we all do. I'm going to talk about connection. I'm going to talk about celebration. I'm going to talk about compensation, and I'm going to talk about choice. I like alliteration, so they're all C words. But I'm going to begin with 2 E words, and they are engagement and experience. And it's been my own experience that these terms are often used interchangeably, even though they have very different meanings. And so for clarity today, when I talk about employee engagement, what I'm really talking about is the commitment an employee makes to doing the job that they're paid to do. And by contrast, when I talk about employee experience, I'm referring to the responsibility that we all share in this room to create conditions so that folks can be engaged in the first place. And with that in mind, I thought I would share with you a bit of a view of what the current state of the employee experience looks like from a research perspective. So reading from left to right, you may not be surprised to know that nearly 2/3 of your workforce are looking for work. What may be surprising to you, however, is the reason they're thinking about leaving. For the first time since we've been studying engagement and retention, it is compensation that tops the list. Now, as we begin to scratch at this, what we realize is that it's not really compensation. We asked employees, which job would you prefer? Would you prefer a job where you were seen, valued, and appreciated every single day? Or would you take a job that paid you 30% more, but those feelings were absent? 72% of employees picked the former. So it's not just compensation, and we'll talk a little bit more about that today. Secondly, you heard burnout being a common thread through the discussions today on panel around health and well-being. Maybe not surprising to you that nearly half of employees report that they are at least somewhat burned out. What might be surprising to you is the particular role that frequent recognition has in improving how someone feels at work, whether they're on the clock or off it, in an office or not in an office, in terms of both their mental and their physical well-being. The third statistic here should jump off the page to you. It certainly does to me, and it's that just 28% of employees would recommend their manager. Now, whether or not you accept the wisdom that people quit their boss rather than their company, this should be startling. And we'll talk a little bit about the special role managers have in creating the types of connections I'm going to speak to. And then last but certainly not least is this notion of connection. One of the big trends for this year is going to be about connection. And what we've seen over the last number of years is really a rash of tools that promise to connect us better than ever. And yet employees are simultaneously overwhelmed by the number of places they have to go and underwhelmed by the experience of those applications. We asked employees how good a job their organization was doing in connecting them to their peers, and just 15% of employees said their organization was doing a good job. So maybe a little doomy and gloomy on a cold day, but I have great optimism for the moment that we're in, because the conditions I'm about to share with you give us proof that there is a different way and a more impactful way. And so with that, we will start with connection. Now, as I said, there's a whole rash of tools that promise to connect us better than ever. But what I would argue to you is that connection is much more of a philosophy than it is a series of features. The fundamental question we need to ask ourselves is, are we making it easy every single day for our people to access the people, the skills, the resources they need so they can be productive and positive from anywhere? What our research into the study of connection has shown, as we've been studying this theme every single quarter since 2020, is that when employees feel a strong sense of connection, they're more than twice as likely to feel that they belong at your organization. Now, why else does this matter? We're at the beginning of a new year. We all have our hopes and plans for that new year. I asked everyone to raise hands and say, have you made a resolution? The truth is, despite our best plans, most employees feel incapable of managing change. We found that just 28% of employees felt capable of meeting unexpected challenges at work. And when you think about it, that's a lot of what work is. We have our best laid plans, and then we're in the office and we're interacting with a customer or a colleague, or there's a market condition. There is always something. Connection matters because when employees are connected to the mission of your organization, when they are connected to their manager, and when they are connected to their peers, those three factors combine to boost their confidence that they can deal with anything that might be lurking around the corner. I talked earlier about managers and just 28% of employees feeling that they wanted to recommend their manager. We did a study into the impact of manager effectiveness, and we found that there are 4 factors that determine the extent to which a manager is effective, and they are these in order of priority. It's frequent contact. Whatever the cadence you establish with the people you're privileged to lead, making sure that you are making that a priority is paramount. Marcus Buckingham in 9 Lies We Tell About Work says if you're to ditch anything, just don't ditch, of all the things you could do as a manager, don't ditch your check-ins, don't ditch your one-on-ones. And I would say the very same thing. The second factor is frequent recognition. And it's not just the attaboys and the good jobs, in the hall, in teams or after a meeting. It's also meaningful recognition, meaning recognition that is personal, specific, and impact-oriented. Coaching and career development are third and fourth on that list. The reason we want to calibrate these conditions as managers is that when we do, employees are much more likely to recommend their manager. How many of you measure manager net promoter scores today? So a handful of you. If you're not, I would, because as you see here, when there are when employees are willing to recommend their manager, it is a great multiplier for all the other ways we keep score, whether it's engagement or productivity and so on. Now, connection matters as well to our peers. What we see is that the more frequently someone is recognized, the stronger their bonds with their peers. Why does this matter? A very brief story is that the company that I helped lead, Tembo Social, was acquired by Achievers in September of 2020. And it was very exciting to go from being a self-funded, Toronto-based software company of about 30 people to a PE-backed global organization of more than 600 A players, as we call ourselves. It was exciting because, holy smokes, look at all the resources, all the people we're going to get to do great big things with. But if we time check, September of 2020 is smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. And it was 13 months before I actually met a person in person. One of the first things that I was asked to do was a product launch, and I had done many in my career, but never one at Achievers, and I didn't really have a sense of what great looked like. And I knew no one. I'm working from one of my son's bedrooms, so I felt marooned. So what did I do? Well, I went into our recognition program, and I typed in product launch in the global search feature. And all of a sudden, I got a list of people, colleagues that I had yet to meet that had been recognized for doing a great job at a product launch. And I was able to reach out to those people and introduce myself and then steal all their good ideas. This is why connection is so important, because every single day, your employees are searching in that way too. And these are one of the conditions that we can make. The last thought on connection is that it occurs to me that although well-intentioned, so many of the programs we make for our people, whether they're focused on learning and development or onboarding or total rewards, are built in silos. And yet what we see is that when we do a good job of connecting our people programs, we drive the right types of outcomes. We did a study 2 years ago that looked at what happened when organizations were connecting their DE&I program and their recognition program. And the things we found were fascinating. We found, first of all, that employees who worked for those organizations were 3 times as engaged. We found that 92% of leaders for both their recognition and their DE&I programs felt more capable of achieving their goals. And we also found that employees reported that the organization felt twice as inclusive. So connecting recognition in particular to the different elements of your people stack is a really, really critical strategy. The second C word, and I'm going to hustle here, is around celebration. Truth be told, not surprisingly, we think and write and research about recognition and its impact every single day. And what we know for sure is that frequent recognition has a massive impact on how employees feel about their work. At the midpoint of every year, we release our State of Recognition report, a global research study of more than 5,000 respondents. These are some of the things we found in 2024. We're just compiling the 2025 report, but we found that when employees were frequently recognized, they're more than twice as likely to feel well physically and mentally at work. When employees were frequently recognized, they were 3 times more likely to be engaged. They were 5 times more likely to feel that they belong at the organization. And thinking back to that big scary statistic about how many of them would recommend their manager, they are 10 times more likely to recommend their manager if they are frequently recognized. Now, feelings are great. I like feelings. I'm a feeling guy. But in my 25 years of work, I've never seen a warm fuzzy get funded. That's the truth. And so what we have to do is connect the things we're doing to business outcomes. And it turns out that frequent recognition has a similar utility, a protective factor around the business outcomes we care about. When people are frequently recognized, they are less likely to job hunt. When people are frequently recognized, they are more likely to self-report that they're their most productive selves at work. And when they're frequently recognized, they are less likely to report that they have a salary that does not meet expectations. And so frequent recognition is not just about the feelings, it's about these protective factors as well. This is not about just monetary recognition. I find non-monetary and monetary are often confused for each other. When we turned our gaze to looking just at social or non-monetary recognition, we found a similar utility in driving business impact. Now, a quick show of hands. How many of you have awards programs in your organization? Okay. We've turned our gaze recently to awards programs. It seems like most organizations have them, and what employees say is that it's better than nothing, but it's worse than average. And here are some of the sentiments. Only 34% expect to win an award. 44% say, I'm not likely to win an award given my role. 50%, not bad, say the company has something that I value, but 71% of employees say it's the same people that win every single year. When we actually ask employees, what do we want? What do you want? And this is a theme I heard today as well, the importance of employee listening. When we ask employees, this is what employees want. They want to be consistently being recognized for the impact that they are having in their role. And so that goes back to those tenets of recognition that is personal, specific, and impact-oriented. What is also powerful when we think about celebration, it's not just about how employees feel. It's not just about connecting them through frequent recognition to the mission, to their manager, and to their peers, but it's also about the opportunity to connect them to the behaviors that drive performance. 74% of employees will repeat an action if they are recognized for it. And so when you think about the behaviors that you're trying to bring to life every single day, whether it's what DEI looks like in practice, or what amazing customer service can look like, or what safety looks like in the best way possible, point recognition in that direction to reinforce those behaviors. So I mentioned compensation, and I mentioned that we asked employees, I'll just skip back here for just a second. We asked employees, which job would you prefer? Would you like a job where you felt seen, valued, appreciated every single day? Or would you prefer a job where you were paid 30% more, but those feelings were absent? 72%, as I told you, told us that they would pick the former. They want to be appreciated. This was also true of those who indicated that they were paid below what they felt was a fair and competitive salary. 77%, in fact, of those people also said, I want to be appreciated. So frequent recognition has a utility in changing how we feel as individuals about how fairly compensated we are. We asked employees, how fairly compensated do you feel? And just over half said they felt they were. It's interesting to me that those perceptions changed to 73% and to 70% respectively when someone was frequently recognized and they felt that they belonged at the organization. So if you think back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we all studied in psych, and you accept the idea that maybe our security needs are addressed through things like our take-home pay, the ability to clothe and feed and house ourselves and get around, isn't it interesting that when our self-esteem needs are met, it can change our perception of those needs? Did you know? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. That 72% of employees said being paid fair market value and being celebrated frequently would actually strengthen their sense of belonging. And what we also see is that recognition continues to outweigh salary as a key driver of business outcomes. I'm delighted to share any of the underlying research with you if you'd like to connect with me after. The last idea, the last C word I'd like to share with you is this idea of choice. And I'm happy to see that the era of one-size-fits-all programs is going the way of the dodo bird, but it makes the work that we all do much more complex. What I know to be true of organizations that win all the awards and are in Forbes and on the lists that we all want to be on is that they have a spirit of inclusion inside their organization. They give folks a chance to not only raise their hand and get a great idea heard, but to determine, to have agency to say, this is what work needs to look like so that it works for me. In fact, what we see is that when organizations are giving this opportunity at least 4 times a year, employees are 50% more engaged and 88% more likely to feel valued. The call to action here is to not do more engagement surveys, even though they have utility for the work that we all do. But it's to think about the programs, the products we're trying to take to market, the policies we're rolling out, and where are the opportunities to, again, involve our employees, to include them in that conversation. 2 quick stories of how this looks great. The first story is of a big box retailer who you would all know, who, facing some financial pressure, decided that they were going to cut their employee discount. And just before they did that, they went to employees through a survey and they said, what do you think of this? And maybe not surprisingly, employees came back and said, this idea sucks, we hate this. Now, as is often the case, the real story was in the verbatim feedback. And what the verbatim said is, hey, we acknowledge this is an undeniable perk of working for this big box retailer, but we actually use the discount to buy product from the store so we can be more informed in our conversations with customers that come into the store every day. That feedback was sent back up to wherever decisions are made, and that decision was reversed. The second one is around well-being, which has been another common thread to our conversations today. And my colleague Mark Whittle at Gartner did a study on well-being, and he observed 3 interesting things. The first is, the lion's share of organizations are investing in well-being programs of some type. The second is their accounting shows that when organizations invest, it pays dividends both for the individuals and the organization. And yet, participation in those programs hovers somewhere between 21 and 26%. And Mark sort of wondered aloud, what gives? Why is this? And his theory, which I'm sharing with you today because I think it's the right one, is that so many of the things we build for our people, we build with a supply side focus, meaning, hey, employees, here's all the stuff that's available to you, rather than a demand side focus that understands the moments that matter to employees and meets them there. And that's exactly what choice is all about. So 4 C words, let me see if I can remember them. Connection, celebration, compensation, and choice. If you're focused on conditions and you resolve to do anything this year, focus on applying these 4 as frameworks for how you build anything for a person. You can connect with me here. I write an article every day on LinkedIn. I have a column in Forbes. This connects to me, and if you would like these slides or any of the underlying research that I provided, I'd be delighted to share it with you. We made it for you, and with that, I'm sorry I'm over time, but I'll give it back to Nick. Thanks, everyone.